Hey YouTube, Dawson Rider here with my series review for Dobutsu Sentai Zyuohger. I'm wearing the same shirt as I was in the final episode review because I'm filming this right after while my thoughts are fresh, even though this video comes out a smidge later. So I'm going to try not to make this too long. This is just going to sort of be an overall series thoughts. Zyuohger. I really wanted to love Zyuohger, and I quite enjoyed it at the beginning, and it's not as if I hate it. I think sometimes in certain parts of the reviews or like online it can come across as I hated it, and I don't think I ever really fully hated it. I hate aspects of it. But it was more like indifference as it went on, and it's unfortunate because I was pretty excited for it. I liked a lot of the designs and concepts of it, so I was looking forward to seeing it, and it had a decent start. It's kind of weird because I almost ended up in a similar boat by the end as I did with Ninja, but for different reasons. But I definitely liked Zyuohger better than Ninja. I almost feel bad comparing them because I really don't like Ninja, like bordering on hate. Whereas Zyuohger's not really like that. But my point is that with Ninja, it was just so on all the time with how annoying it was that it was hard to watch. Whereas Zyuohger, at its worst, was boring. It definitely had those really stupid humor moments, but it was really dull a lot of the time for me. So I ended up being in a similar place by the end where I wasn't as invested in the end game as I usually am. And for Ninja, it was because they were so annoying for so long that when they wanted me to actually take what they were doing seriously, I couldn't. And with Zyuohger, they just meandered for so long, I didn't care as much as I should have. So that's kind of unfortunate. And it had, like I said, it had a decent start. Like I mentioned, I hate to bring up Ninja, but like the Ninja's problem is it was so on all the time with the comedy. None of its characters were really grounded, so I could never take them as real people. And Zyuohger started off decently like that. It was a lot calmer, a lot more like normal Sentai, where you had episodes that focused a bit on the characters' personalities, and it was just really kind of nice. So that's why I really enjoyed the first batch of episodes, because I could actually see them as characters and not just clowns honking in my face. I liked a lot of the mythology they set up. I was really interested to find out more about the Juman world and like how the powers were created and how it all worked. And then that kind of let me down, as I mentioned in my finale review, that it ended up just being this kind of generic toku explain of the Earth gave the power, and you know, the Earths were split long ago by a whale, and I don't know. I mean, that's more a personal thing, I guess. I was wanting more. I mean, it wasn't like it wasn't introducing any really intriguing mysteries like something like Dime or something, but it was stuff I was interested in, and then when we got the answers, they felt kind of half-hearted and uninteresting to me. So that was kind of unfortunate because that was one of the things I liked most. And the story really, like I said, it meandered. Like I said, it was nice at the beginning, so it was like kind of a calmer start, and then it just kept being like that, and then like steadily getting more boring, and it was like, oh man, is something gonna happen? And then I'm like, that classic whenever I'm not enjoying a toku, oh, the Sixth Ranger or the secondary writer is gonna show up, that'll kick things in. And it did for like a minute, and the world came, and that sounded weird, and then there was a stretch of, was it 2 or 3 episodes that were good when he debuted, and then Misao was introduced, and that was a cancer. I'll get into that when I briefly go over characters, but then after that, they kept meandering, and like the main plot, meandering is the word of this review, guys. The main plot was like, we gotta find this other cube that Bard has, and they didn't know Bard had it, and we would go a long time without mentioning it. And it did suffer from the same problem as Ninja, where when they weren't actively on the plot for the 2 episodes they were allowed to, it was as if it didn't exist. And I'm not saying every episode when you're doing your thing of the week, you're like, hey, remember this cube? But other shows, and other toku shows even, have made you feel like the plot line is active when you're in filler. Like, they could have a stretch of 4 or 5 episodes, but maybe something would happen, or there'd be something in the background that wasn't necessarily moving the plot at all, but it would remind you it was going on, so you still felt like you were in an ongoing storyline. Whereas this almost felt like when you catch reruns and you randomly catch stuff, and it was like, well, maybe I'm watching this before this was introduced. And it was a long time. I think it was like past when Gokaiger showed up, past when Bard was introduced the first time, or not Bard, when whale stuff was introduced, that we finally got to that plot. And so it was like these long stretches and then little bits of plot. And then at the end you revealed stuff like Azald, which wasn't that exciting of a reveal, and then it would seem to be revealed and over so quickly. and it just didn't have a lot of plot. Like, I know Sentai can have filler. I mean, that's for sure. There's not any Sentai without a lot of filler, especially in the beginning. But like I said, it was the long gaps. And these last 2 years, even some of the Sentais that I don't care for as much, well, maybe like Mega Ranger was pretty boring. But I mean, you know what I mean. Like, they wouldn't have that long of stretches where nothing was even remotely mentioned, as if it didn't exist. So the plot really let me down. They really took too much time for things, and then the answers didn't pay off. And it was too much just generic friendship stuff. And like I said, I know it can make, in previous reviews I've said, it can make it seem like I'm against friendship and happiness. But it's the way they go about it. It doesn't seem true and organic. It just seems like they're reciting a Japanese version of a Hallmark card. And as far as characters go, I honestly don't even think I have a favorite. I was just kind of okay with everyone. One thing I do appreciate is that Yamato wasn't a generic streaking red. He was honestly just kind of generic, like itself, like kind of there. I was okay with him. I didn't really love him. I didn't hate him. But I appreciated that he at least wasn't that, like, I don't know why Japan thinks that's the coolest character, is just a shrieking crackhead coming at you head on. And I appreciated that he wasn't that. He was like somewhere in between crackhead, red, and then like the badass red. He was like right here. So I was okay with him, but everyone else honestly kind of bled together for me. I mean, I know that there's people that will say like, oh, this character at this moment and this moment, and they all were kind of distinct in their personalities. Like, for example, like Leo was, you know, more outgoing, a little bit crazy, and kind of not afraid to say what he was thinking, as Tusk's a little bit kind of more that reserved Sentai archetype. And yeah, so like I understood their personalities distinctly, and they had such distinct different looks both before and after they transformed that I could tell them apart. But it kind of reminded me of my problems with certain older Sentais, where they all kind of, they never really had a moment truly where I was like, okay, this is why I really like this character, this is who they are. I just kind of very narrowly separated them in my mind. And then, oh my god, Misao might be my biggest disappointment in the series, because I really like the world suit. It might be one of my favorite all-time suits. It's really cool. I love the way it switches around. And I was excited to get a sort of antagonist Six Ranger thing, because we haven't really had that in a while. Like a true, like, evil Six Ranger arc that I could think of. Because, like, we didn't have one for Tokyuger, really. We didn't have one. We had, like, Q Ranger get Death Ryuger, but that was, like, movie stuff. So, like, we hadn't had one. And it was really cool. It was introduced. He was kicking ass and taking names. And then he ended up being Misao. And I've mentioned before, like, at some point in Sentai time, unless it gets canceled, I would love to get either and or, whether one series or another badass red or a badass sixth. I miss when they were really cool, awesome characters, instead of, in the case of reds lately, they've been shrieking crackheads, and in sixth, they've all been like one-note gimmicks, where they have like a joke, and then they're just that joke. And that was what Misao was, which is frustrating, because I was already disappointed we didn't get a badass character like he was when he was taken over. But then you make him this guy who actually had the potential to be a really innovative Sentai character. Is the guy that's suffering some sort of depression, anxiety. He kind of hates himself. I can relate to that for sure. But like, that could have been a really cool character. Like, can't think of another character that would have had that sort of mental problems. And it could have been interesting and relatable and intriguing, but instead they turned it into a bit. A joke where he was like, I didn't get invited to the pancake party, I'm not worthy of pancakes. And then at the end of the episode, it's like, you're worthy. And he's like, yay. Next episode, I didn't get invited to the waffle party. And it's like, and people have pointed out, which is true, when you have those type of mental issues, you don't just get over it. Someone just says, you know, don't be self-loathing, don't be anxious. You don't just like, oh, okay. That's true, but it's also not a joke, you know? And the way they played it for that wasn't like, oh, hey, it takes time to get over these things. It was, hey, Misao was worried about something stupid in this episode, and then we made progress, but then we reset to 1. And that was the problem with Misao, is during the filler, we spent so much time on him. And it was the same plot. Misao's worried because he doesn't feel worthy of X thing, and he curls up in the corner, and then one of the team members gives him confidence, and then by the next episode, it's as if that episode never happened. And it was frustrating. And then it didn't allow the other characters to really have anything, because it would be like, oh, this is a Leo episode, but it's about Leo helping Misao. Oh, this is a Sella episode, but it's about Sella helping Misao. And we did that so much that I just grew to hate him. And it's frustrating, because he had really 2 chances to be a cool character. And oof. Other characters, honestly, Mario, I didn't know his name was Mario until the episode he found out that the Rangers existed. He was just there, kind of like the dad from the Ninja for me, and I really didn't feel anything for him until he found out, and then he kind of became a bit more involved. The Human stuff was stupid for me personally, but I think if he would have found out earlier that he at least could have been a bit more involved, would have given him a bit more to do in the series. Larry was a fun guy when he showed up. I kind of wish he was around more. Bard was probably another big disappointment for me in this series because I felt like I was constantly waiting for his storyline to happen and it never did. Like, that was one of the mysteries I was intrigued at the beginning, very similar to the mythology, that just kind of, the answer let me down. And he ended up becoming this weird, not orange printer running out of ink ranger. And you find out there's actually kind of a neat reasoning why he didn't like humans, and that those humans actually banished a human before. And when that happened, that reveal, I thought that was part one of what was going to be a larger story. And like I said, I was just constantly waiting for his story to happen. Like, I was waiting for one more big moment from him, and it never happened. Even at the end, it didn't feel resolved. And to find out, like, oh, he was saved by Yamato's dad a long time ago, that could have been done differently. And it could have been his dad was the one that was banished, and that's how they knew each other. So, like, I think there was a missed opportunity to connect those two storylines and make it more interesting, and just a missed opportunity in general, because I thought Bard's backstory was actually really interesting, and it just felt like I was waiting, and then, oh, it's episode 48. Like, so that's really disappointing, because like I said, there should have been more to that. That seemed like a plot point to introduce, and not only didn't resolve the plot point, but didn't even really resolve it for his character, especially with the worlds combining. You think they would have maybe done a little something to resolve his animosity and hesitance towards both the humans and the humans. The villains were a huge letdown in this show. They had more presence than the ninjas, because the ninjas always felt like they were operating out of a shack of like 3 people. So they had the number feel, but they were just dull. Nobody ever did anything interesting until the end, and even then it was generic answers. Like, the Isolde stuff seemed to come out of nowhere at the end. I didn't see any hints of it until they decided to start doing it, and even then it was very generic. Genus was also just generic. He had a cool design, but was generic as hell. You didn't even get any kind of reveal about him until the end, and as I mentioned in the finale, it wasn't even that great because there was nothing much to build on about it. And it's unfortunate because he could have been kind of interesting in the fact that instead of most villains that just want to rule the world like all the other sickos, he saw it like as a game. So it was all a game to him. Like, no matter what happened, whether the Rangers fought or another villain came in or villains were infighting, he's like, oh, this makes the game funner. So that could have been played up to be kind of terrifying and interesting, and it just never was. I hate to go without mentioning Bunglei, who honestly might be my favorite villain in this series, because I don't think I appreciated his utter disgust at them spewing toku nonsense sayings about friendships, because that's just me watching the show, so I appreciated that. So I liked that about him, but he also ended up being kind of a letdown, because I thought he was interesting when he showed up, having this X element, and then he just ended up kind of working with them and not, and then did this thing with Kubar, which was another thing. It was kind of like, that's what I felt about most of the plots that were introduced, is they introduced something kind of interesting, and you waited for it to take off, and it never really did for me. And I think I was disappointed that Bunglei just didn't stay around as an X element. Maybe not the whole series, but instead of necessarily blending him so much with the other villains, making him a third party. I don't know. Like, it was kind of classic Zyuohger for what I felt about it. Designs and stuff, just to go over it, I actually really liked the designs in the show. I quite liked the suits. I thought the helmets looked cool. I know they're kind of basic, but I did kind of like the drawings on them. Like I said, I really liked the world suit. I like the concept of Yamato being able to sort of form change like a rider. That was cool. I really appreciate that they never shortchanged any form either. I thought he used them all pretty equally. And I quite liked the mecha as well. I know a lot of people didn't, but I really liked it. It was unique for Sentai. I know it's not a unique thing overall, but for Sentai it was unique. I liked a lot of the designs. They could be kind of adorable and cool at the same time. I thought the mecha were a lot of fun to collect and play with. Like I said, I know it's not for everyone, but it was kind of stupid when people say they were lazy making them because they were simple, because that's what they're going for. It's like getting mad at Wizard for being about magic. Like, yeah, that's what they're going for. Like, you're like, can't believe it. This looks like it's about magic. That's what they're going for. They're going for the simple cube look. That's why they look blocky. It's like, I just never understood that. But the point is there was definitely some weapons I was iffy on, but I overall liked the suits and the Megazord suits and stuff, and it's kind of a shame we'll probably never get it here so that we can get action figures of them, because I would love Figure of the World and Yamato's other forms, and any of them really, and it's kind of a shame. But yeah, overall, Zyuohger was very basic for me, unfortunately. It wasn't a hatred. I really wanted to like it more. I liked it at the beginning, and I really wanted to like it more. It was very dull for me, to be honest, overall experience. I left it not like Ninja where I was like, good riddance. It was just kind of like, oh, that's done. Let's be better. You know, I'm over this. It was dull for me, which is unfortunate, because it had a lot of concepts I liked that just weren't fleshed out. Like I said, that was kind of the story of it. They introduced things that piqued my interest, and then they either never took off, or the answer they gave wasn't satisfactory, and then they even never took off from there. But yeah, it was kind of dull for me. I'd overall probably give the series grade a 6 overall. Just kind of, yeah. But anyway, that's pretty much it. Let's hope for better from Kyuranger. I really hope that they can make me excited to watch Sentai every week again. Until next time, check out the Crazy Podcast at writersrangeexamples.com, and of course, don't forget to like, comment, subscribe. Until next time, Dawson Rider, signing out.